Okay, geometry, let's do this. This is chapter 3, lesson 4. We've talked about, in this chapter, we've already talked about translations, we've talked about reflections, and we've talked about rotations. But what happens if you do all three at the same time? Is it going to be crazy? It's not. It's just, the first thing they talk about is theorem 3.1 in here. And they just say that if you have a composition of transformations, then that's just a transformation. Okay? So if I have my hand and I reflect it and I move it and then I reflect it back, it's still going to be the same hand. So that's pretty simple if you think about it. They give a number of examples. One of them they called a glide. What do they call it? A glide reflection? Yeah, glide reflection. And if you think about it, that would be, let me take my slippers off here. That would be like walking. Okay? So you start with 1, and if I reflect that, it's going to look like this. And then I translate it, it's going to go up. Then I translate the other one, and that would be like steps. Okay? So that's a glide reflection. Theorem 3.2, when you first read it, it sounds a little weird. But they say if you have two parallel lines and you have a figure, I'll kind of do it like that. And you reflect that figure across the first line, you're going to get something that looks like this. And then if I reflect this figure across that line, you're going to get back to what you had. So if I got rid of this and got rid of this, you can just see that this is the same thing as a translation, right? So that's what theorem 3-2 says. It says, I'll read it what they say in the book. The composition of two reflections in parallel lines can be described by a translation. So it just simply moves the thing along to another spot. Theorem 3-3 is very similar. It's similar in a way, I guess. And it says if you have two intersecting lines and you had a figure here, and then you reflect it across that first line, you would get something like this. And then if I reflect that across that line, if I can do this, it's going to give you something like that. And then if I get rid of all this, think what you've really done here. You've really done a rotation. This figure, it just rotates around to where it is there. So that's all theorem 3-3 says. It says the composition of two reflections in intersecting lines can be described by a rotation. Okay, I think obviously there's a little more to this section as you work through it, but that's the basics of what we're doing here. Okay, I'm out.